Hello, I'd like to share with you in this video about a man called Naaman. We find him in the Bible in the book of Kings, 2 Kings and chapter 5. Naaman was a great man, but he had a health problem. He suffered from leprosy. He was a commander in the king's army, a very successful army person. And on one occasion, he had gone out with a group of other soldiers and they had captured people, including a young girl. And the girl became a maidservant in Naaman's house. And when Naaman discovered that he had leprosy, and in those days there was no cure, they were simply sent out to remain separate from everyone else. The young girl turned to Naaman's wife and said, "I know a man back in my own country who could heal your husband." So she told Naaman. Naaman got some authority from the king and set off with some soldiers to go to meet this man. However, on the way, he decided that he wasn't going to bother with the man. He was going to go straight to the king of that country. When he arrived and presented his letters, the king was furious because he believed that he couldn't heal Naaman, and all that was going to happen was that Naaman would go back to his country and they'd send soldiers to capture the land in which this king had authority. However, Elisha, who was the man involved, sent a message to the king, said, "Send Naaman to me and I will sort him." So Naaman went, and when he arrived, he was very upset because Elisha didn't come out. He sent his servant and said, "Tell Naaman to go and wash in the Jordan 7 times and he will be healed." "What?" thought Naaman. "I'm not going to that dirty, smelly river and going to have to wash 7 times. I'm going home." Fortunately, some of the soldiers were able to persuade him to at least go to the river and dip as the man had said. And Naaman did that. And after the 7th time, he was healed and went back home. What do we learn briefly from that story? Well, first of all, Naaman tried to buy his healing. He took with him lots of things that he could give as a gift if he was healed. Jesus has often said, "Come, you have no money, buy without costs." So many people want to try and buy or earn their way into heaven. And we're reminded that it's by grace alone that we are saved. Secondly, he tried to turn to a non-believer for his healer. He went to the king. He hadn't been told to go to the king. He'd been told to go to this man, Elisha, as we now know, who would heal him. But instead he went to the king. And the Bible reminds us, seek first the Lord. Call upon him. So often when we face problems and difficulties, we always turn to other people before we turn to the Lord. He also had preconceived expectations. He was a great soldier, and when he arrived at Elisha's home, he expected Elisha to come out and to wave his magic hand and to heal him, not to send his servant and tell him to go and bathe in the river Jordan. You see, there are three things that we learn from here. Firstly, until we're willing to acknowledge our need, God can't help us. Until we reach a point where we say, God, I cannot sort this out. I need your help. Then God won't step in. You see, God isn't one of these people that barges his way into our lives. He comes near to us when we ask him and invite him. Remember Revelation 3:20, behold, I stand at the door and knock, and if anyone opens the door, I will come in. Remember, you've got to open the door before Jesus comes in. Secondly, God used this young lass to share the possibility of his healing. God uses different people in different ways, and they're not always Christians. Some of the advice that I've received over the years and the help I've received over the years hasn't come from Christians, but God has sent them because they've got a particular message or a particular skill that they're able to share to help and support. We need to be open for God to use who he wishes to minister to us. You see, we have to get to a point where we are empty of selves. We've tried everything but God. And God has promised to supply our every need. You see, he said, my thoughts are not your thoughts, and my ways are not your ways. God works in different ways to bring glory and honour to his name. And yes, he used a young lass to direct Naaman back to her country, not to the king. And in this instance, it wasn't directly to God's man in Elisha, but to his servant. And yes, he used what was a mucky, smelly river to bring healing. I wonder how many of us these days are struggling with situations in life. We may not suffer from leprosy. It may not be a physical, it may be an emotional or a psychological or a spiritual problem that we're facing. But somehow we take Naaman's course. Let's try and find a solution, buy our way out. Let's ignore what's in front of us. And in front of us is a loving Saviour who's saying, come to me, all you who are heavy laden, who are worried, who are concerned, and I will meet you and I will help you. He doesn't always do what we want him to do, but he always does what we need, and he provides for our need. The Lord is my shepherd. I have everything I need. The Lord bless you real good.